Hello and welcome back to another video on my channel. With the 2024 election over and all the analysis just starting on my channel and many other channels, we can actually now try to measure and see how states will be shifting over the next election and over into the 2030s. And so in today's video, we're going to be outlining a couple states, a few states, some on the Democrat side and some on the Republican side, that could be shifting into potential swing states in 2028 and more likely in the 2030s. And so before we get started on today's video, thank you guys so much for watching. Please like my video, put all your comments, suggestions, and questions in the section below, and check out my other content once you're done watching this video. So the 2024 election, 98% of the vote has been counted is pretty much over. Donald Trump is probably going to end up winning the popular vote by around this margin. He is at 50.1%. She's at 48.3%. He'll win the popular vote by probably 2.5 million votes, maybe 2 million. California is almost done counting finally, so we can finally take a look at some of these trend maps, and a lot of these counties are finally in from around the San Francisco area, and we do have LA County that's also in. And so really been looking at some of these trends, we can actually see which states are looking much more favorable for one side of the aisle and which states are looking more favorable for the other side of the aisle. And when doing this, we also have to compare how each state kind of shifted as compared to the whole of the country as a whole. And so the country as a whole shifted around 6 points to the right, give or take 6 points to the right. So that's a pretty big shift, more than I even had expected. And so some states have shifted to the right more than that, and some states have shifted to the left less than that. There's not a single state that moved to the left in general. So that's kind of what we're looking at here. And usually the bigger states and the states that are more safe trended more to the Republican side this election. And so we can definitely use this to show us what trends are going to be looking like going into the next few elections. And so I kind of filled out a map based on states that could be contested in the next 12 years, the next 3 election cycles. I filled out states already that are from this cycle, this presidential results cycle. And so the states that are remaining are going to be those ones that we're going to go over. These are not projections for the next election, all these swing states. I'm just filling them out from this year's election results so that it doesn't really confuse you guys from the states that I want to go over. And so the first state that I'm going to go over is going to be the state of Utah. And this is a state that Donald Trump won in 2020 by around 20 points. Now he won it by a little bit more, I believe. If I want to check the CNN results, he won it by 21.6. So he went from around 20 points in 2020 to 21 points now, which is not much of a change at all. Just 1 point when the nation shifted around 6 points to the right. And even though you can't really look at that too much as an indicator into how the state's going to shift if the national environment goes back the other way. But I can definitely tell you, if you wanted me to list you one state in particular that Republicans might need to be looking out for in the 2030s, it would probably be Utah. Look at these trends over here. There was not really anything that happened. There's even trends in the Salt Lake City area that are to the left, including Davis and Morgan County. Salt Lake County didn't really move at all. Some counties are already Democrat counties, so that moving to the right would probably mean that Democrats are just maxed out and there's not really a lot of voters in there. So this is probably one state that Republicans need to worry about in the 2030s. Obviously not now because it is so Republican. There's a lot of growth, however, in the Salt Lake metro area. And if Republicans start faltering in their biggest county, which is Utah County, if they start faltering in that county and Democrats actually gain a pretty substantial lead in Salt Lake County, there is not much in the rural areas that will offset the population here. Just look at these bubbles. Most of the bigger ones are around this area over here. Obviously, there's a little bit down in Washington County, but this is a state that we could definitely see shifting to the left a lot over the next 12 years. And I wouldn't be surprised if a Republican in the year 2036, for example, I think there's an election in there is an election in 2036, wins the state by only like 15 points or maybe even 12 points. I would not be surprised. And that's going to be really the first state that I want to go over, and the first state that could get closer that I'm just going to put in the likely column right here so you guys can see it. The next state is going to be New Mexico, and New Mexico is the one that we talk about a lot. It's a state that shifted 5 points to the right, which is a little bit less than a national average, but still pretty substantial, a 5-point shift. And it's one that we kind of expected, going from Biden plus 10.8 all the way down now to around around Harris plus 6. So this is a pretty big shift in the Republicans' favor. And this is one that will stop and shift back to the left if Republicans don't continue to make gains with Hispanics, because Democrats already have a substantial base up in the Albuquerque area and around Santa Fe. These are very Democrat areas. Republicans really have to run it up down in the southwestern and southeastern parts, make a lot of gains in Dona Ana County to really get this state under that margin of error level. And could they reverse the trends back to what it was, let's say, in the early 2000s, where Bush actually won it in 2004? Yes, that is very possible, but they have to make gains, a lot of gains with Hispanics to really counteract the gains that Democrats made with whites. But I do see it as a possibility. Looking at this trend map, there's a lot of good counties right here that are for Republicans. They did gain 5 points in Santa Fe County. They did gain 3.4 in Bernalillo County. And so really gaining among this county with Albuquerque and is gonna really shift the state more to the right, and could see it actually being a competitive state in the 2030s. I'm gonna put this in the lean column to show you guys that it could be in that range coming up. Another state that Democrats really could gain, and this is another one that Republicans probably have to worry about, is the state of Kansas. And Kansas is another one of those states that barely moved this election cycle. It moved only 1.5% to the right, which is not at all. It did move to the right. We have to admit that every single state moved to the right, but in an environment where the national environment as a whole moved significant to the right, Kansas didn't really change too much. And this is a state that Donald Trump won by 14.6%, and now he won it by 16.2. Not much of a change. So this is a state that Republicans are also probably have to worry about in the 2030s. Once again, a huge margin. Trump winning it by 16 points. And, Trump and the Republicans may be able to find a little bit of security in knowing that this county right here, which is one of the bigger counties, actually moved to the right. But if we check Johnston County right here, it actually moved to the left. And so Johnson County is the biggest county in the state. And if Johnson County is moving to the left in this kind of environment, we're probably going to see in the next few election cycles, whichever one Democrats are most favored in, this shift is going to be at least 5 points to the left. And that right there will swing the state as a whole a few points. And the state's not as Republican as some of these other states. It's only a 16-point win. So really a couple elections could really mean a lot. Like look at New Jersey, for example. It got down all the way to only around 5.5 points. The same thing could definitely happen to Kansas, especially when you're looking at this map. These trends in a lot of these rural areas are kind of maxed out. There's not really too much ground where Republicans could really make. And you can really see here on this map right here, there is not really too much Republicans can do at this point in some of these rural areas. They're almost completely maxed out. Getting anything above 91%, that's pretty ridiculous. Getting anything above that would be pretty impossible. And since these counties are not really growing, and we have Johnson County and Douglas County with a lot larger populations, and obviously we have here Shawnee County, especially Johnson County, seeing that growth continue would mean a lot of trouble for Republicans. So the state is going to be placed in that likely column, displaying its leftward trend. Now we're going to go next to the state of Illinois. And Illinois' trend is really going to depend on how many people actually leave the Chicago area. Let me give you guys a little bit of perspective on that. Look at this giant blue dot right at the top right of your screen. This is Cook County. This is where Chicago is, the downtown and a lot of the suburbs. It is an extremely liberal county. Trump won 29% of the vote, which is actually 9 points better than the previous election. So this is a state that could actually make a lot of moves to the right if Cook County continues to trend to the left. The rest of the state is pretty Republican. If I want to show you a county map here, mostly every county is Republican, including where Springfield is. That's a pretty large population center. But Cook County, where Chicago is probably the only reason why this state is actually staying in the Democrat column right now. Keep in mind, this state did shift 7 points to the right since the 2020 election. It voted for Biden by 17 points, and now it's only voting for Harris by 10 points. points. So this state has a lot of potential to move to the right, given that it is, once considered a safe state. And we can go back even further to see even Obama won it by 17. He won it by 25 in the 2008 election. So if Republicans continue to make gains with African-American voters in the Chicago suburbs, especially a lot of these suburbs where there's a lot of people, Cook County is really where it's all going to be decided. And if this county continues to shift right, we're going to see massive trends to the Republican Party, especially because it did move 9 points more than the state, more than the country actually shifted. So let's say it continues to move around 3 points to the right every election cycle. We're going to see Chicago below 10 points in the next election, and maybe even closer in the next election cycles to really match a lot of its neighbors like Ohio and Indiana that have a lot of big cities, but also a lot of suburbs and rural areas that just counteract that big city. So because of all that, I'm going to be putting Illinois right now in that likely column. Let's move on quickly past the state of Minnesota. And Minnesota is a state that I do not actually categorize as one of those states that is potentially a toss-up that came from the Democrat safe column. I just wanted to point out that the state of Minnesota hasn't voted for a Republican all the way back since 1972. So if this is a state that Republicans are actually able to flip in the 2028 election, or maybe even in the 2030s, it would be pretty significant. And right now I am going to leave the state in the lean column, but I wanted to tell you guys that it is a state that we do want to keep an eye on, because it's a state that we're going to see if these trends in the Minneapolis area can really counteract the rest of the state. And I want to cross now to the state of Virginia. And Virginia is a state that Democrats are very in trouble if they do not get their act together. This is a state that Joe Biden won by 10 points after Hillary Clinton only won by 5 points. Also a state that Republicans had a pretty good grip on during Bush's era. Obama only won it by 6 and 3.9. It was a state that was even trending left from 2012 to 2016, doubling its margin up to 2020. And now in the 2024 election, she's only going to win it by 5.8%. That is like half of what Joe Biden won it by. And that is a very, very questionable state for Democrats, given that the trend was so strong. If it continued trending to the left, we would have seen a state like, it would be like Colorado, where she won by 11 still. It would be only around 1 to 2 points down from 2020. But the margin was literally cut in half. And so the thing about Virginia is, it is a very interesting state, because there's a lot of people that live in the Nova area, the northern area of Virginia. And there's obviously a lot of people that live in the southern area and around Richmond. But this area around here, Fairfax, Loudoun, Prince William, and all these little counties in between, really dictate how the state's going to move. And many of us thinking Trump was a very, very bad fit for Virginia would not do too well in the 2024 election. But to all of us surprises, he actually did very good in the 2024 election, and he actually shifted a lot of these counties in the northern area of Virginia double-digit margins to the right. Like, look at Manassas County, 13 points. We have Prince William, 9. Loudoun, we have at almost 10. We have Fairfax at 7.5. And also the rest of the state moved to the right. Richmond County moved to the right. Roanoke, we have all of the Norfolk and Virginia Beach area, and Chesapeake. And obviously huge shifts to the right. And my question about Virginia is, Trump was said to be not a good fit for the state. So if Vance runs in 2028, how will he perform in Virginia? And I actually think if the environment is decent, he will perform better than Trump in Virginia. And due to those reasons, Virginia is going to be placed in the lean column going into the next election cycles, as a possibility that it could be a close state, and one that surprises Democrats, because it's really taken a turn for the worst for them, going from 10 points all the way down to 5. And this is a state that has been trending heavily to the right. It's like it's like Texas, where Trump only won it by 5.6. And in this election cycle, he wins the state of Texas by a whopping 14 points. And so finally, the last state that I wanted to go over was the state of New Jersey. And this one is what Democrats need to worry about the most. New York obviously is also something that they need to worry about, given that Trump trended it shifted it by 11 points. It still, though, is going to be a safe Democrat state for a little bit while. So we're not going to go over New York quite yet. But New Jersey is one that they need to worry about. And I think that's an understatement. Joe Biden won New Jersey by 16 points in the 2020 election. And right now, Kamala Harris is only won it by 5.6%. That is 1/3 of the margin that Joe Biden won it by. Trump shifted it 10.3 points to the right. And looking at all these county maps, Trump actually shifted a lot of counties. He flipped a few counties even. And if you want to check the trends using the arrows, we can see here, Bergen County, 13 points, Essex, Union, a lot of double-digit shifts in a lot of these very, very heavy populated counties. And so the real question is, what's going to happen with New Jersey now in the 2028 election and into the 2030s? And I can tell you that if Democrats continue on their, their messaging and their party base, this will be a state that will be contested in the 2028 election, maybe even in the 2030s. And so I'm putting this right now in the lean column as a possibility that it could be a state that is close. And, if we remember back this election, we didn't even see New Jersey called up until past midnight, I believe, even on CNN. And so this is a very good, big worrisome for them, given that 14 electoral votes could definitely swing the election. But this is going to be our map, and this is going to be all the states that could end up changing. These are sleeper flips, states that could end up being safe states that transform into competitive states. Once again, Utah, New Mexico, Kansas, Illinois, Virginia, and New Jersey are among those ones that need to be highlighted the most. But thank you guys so much for watching. Please subscribe, like my video, put our comments and suggestions in the section below, and I'll check you guys out in the next one.